Welcome to Wheels on Reels, episode 7. Today we have Transformers 4. This movie really just kind of made me go, what? Not entirely sure I understood the full plot or what the end goal was or how they were going to use the Transformium, but nonetheless, still an entertaining watch. Lots of explosions and lots of cool cars, which is why we're here today. So this film has more cars than any of the prior Transformers. I'm going to go through 13 of them, but then give a couple honorable mentions as well. And all in all, a solid list. The film also has a lot of scenes that were filmed at GM property. So I actually recognized a couple of the spots as I was rewatching it, which was cool to see, including the wind tunnel that was underground there. So brought back some good memories. But without further ado, we'll get into the cars, starting with the honorable mentions. A couple Aston Martins in the background here and there, and then there's a couple Audis in the background here and there as well. A few Buicks see some screen time too, mostly getting blown up, but a couple get some real screen time as well. But with that, we'll get into our meat and potatoes of this movie. So in the number 13 spot, we have the original Bumblebee rendition that's featured. It's a 1967 Camaro that's black with kind of a yellow front fascia on it. Not really my style, and as I've talked about in prior episodes, anything pre-really 1990 just doesn't really do it for me. So gonna leave this one last on the list, but still a cool car, and you gotta respect it for being the classic Bumblebee design with a bit of a new twist. At number 12, we have the new Bumblebee, which is, I think, the 6th gen Camaro concept. It's 2014, so the 6th gen Camaro wasn't out yet, but the front fascia looks a lot like the 6th gen Camaro. The rear end is still kind of the 5th gen taillights, so I think it was probably a test mule or something like that, but still cool to see kind of the first featuring of that design. This 6th gen had the LT1 V8 in it, the same motor that's in my C7, and great muscle car, but there's more on this list that I would rather have in the garage, so we'll keep going. At number 11, we have the Pagani Huayra. Now, I know this might surprise some of you as to why this is so low on the list, but over the course of the last couple of years, I've been lucky enough to see several Paganis, and don't crucify me, but I honestly think they're a little bit overrated. I love the Zonda. I love the Huayra R and kind of the more advanced variants of the Huayra, especially the original Huayra, which had just your standard torque converter automatic and the AMG twin turbo V8. Great motor, but I love something with a little bit more soul, and for those reasons, we have the Huayra at number 11. At number 10, we have the Rolls-Royce Ghost, which is essentially a smaller Phantom. If I were to get a Rolls, it would be a Wraith. That's my favorite of the lineup, but the Ghost is pretty slick as well. It's nice to have something a little bit more practical than a Phantom for navigating city streets or tight garages. Still sick, you get a V12 in it, and a beautiful car, great design from Rolls-Royce, and a really elegant interior. But I would rather have the Phantom if I'm going to go the luxury route, or have the Wraith if I want to go the sports car route. So I'm not entirely sure what niche the Ghost fills, but still cool to see in the movie nonetheless, and a great exotic car. At number 9, we have the XP87 prototype that was in the last film. I put quite a few photos of it in that video, so check that out if you want to see more. But basically, the GM design chief kind of made this prototype racer from a original Stingray, and then it became his own personal car, drove it on the weekends in 2 Cars and Coffee, and then it remained in the GM collection, underwent a restoration, and now they take it out to shows every once in a while. But it's a really great piece of design. I think it has aged really well. I especially love the bump behind the headrest. It's kind of the same thing you see in the new Ferrari Monza. I don't technically know what this is called, so if you know, drop it in the comments below, but it's one of my favorite design features on any car, and anytime I see it in the wild, I always try to get a pic. I love the design. But again, not the best driving experience probably, given that it is a little bit dated at this point, so we're leaving it here at number 9 on the list. Still cool, just there's better options, including the C7 Corvette. So there is a C7 in this movie. It's a Stingray because it was a 2014 movie. The Grand Sport or Z06 weren't out yet, but cool to see. Always appreciate whenever C7 makes an appearance. This one's green with a very minor body kit on it. Another one I got to see in real life when I went to the Corvette Museum in Kentucky, so that was a nice treat. Looked at some of the pieces, but none of them really made sense for me to put on my car, so don't have any of them, but it is cool. I'll assume it's a manual because, you know, if they're a Transformer and they've got all the parts, they probably have a clutch somewhere in there. So it takes the number 8 spot. At number 7, we have the Cadillac CL. This one is the more luxurious sort of, I think it's a Roadster Cadillac. I believe it had a W12 or W16, kind of crazy big engine, something like that. Unique design from GM, and you know, it's always cool getting to see a concept car for more than just an auto show, so I'm glad it was featured in the film. Not quite as cool as the number 6 car, which is the Cadillac CN. This one is the more sports car focused Cadillac concept. A little bit older than the CL, but still cool nonetheless. Kind of takes the Cadillac XLR styling up to 11 and just a really aggressive sporty car. The company that actually made my wing for the C7 is building a body kit for the C8 Stingray that will make it look like a Cadillac CN. It's not out yet, still in development, but I've been watching the progress photos on Facebook, and hopefully it all comes together as cool as those photos look. That would be pretty neat to see. But nonetheless, cool car, and again, like I said, for the CL, always nice when a concept car gets a little bit of airtime. At number 5, we've got what I would probably call the most fun car in the film, which is the Chevy Sonic RS. It's driven by Tessa's boyfriend in the movie and gets a fun appearance in the field, gets plenty of actual rally action. And I love cars like this, purpose-built car with all of the modern amenities stripped out, and you're left with, you know, just you and the machine. I love analog cars like that, so getting to go in something like this would be awesome. Glad to see it in the film, and glad to see kind of a break from the norm of what you've been seeing in these movies before, you know, with the luxury and sports cars, and more of a fun car here. I know the last Transformers had 2 Chevy Sparks in it, and I commented on those, but seeing the Sonic in here dressed up the way it is pretty cool as well. At number 4, we have the McLaren MP412C. I love these. I watched all of the documentaries before the car first came out. There's a National Geographic Mega Factories one where a lot of clips of Frank Stephenson, the designer, and they kind of talk about how they're retooling the whole McLaren production line and the challenges of going from a Formula One team to a road car manufacturer. Obviously, not a McLaren F1 replacement. That kind of fell to the P1 down the line, but still nice to have the birth of McLaren as a car manufacturer. Twin turbo V8, the 3.8 in this one. Cool car. They do have quite a lot of technical gremlins from everything I've seen and read, and I think you can pick an MP412C up for about $85-$90 these days, which is pretty cheap for what you get. You just got to be worried about the transmission, I think, is the big issue there. So cool car. The design, I'd say, has aged well, but then when you look at the 12C versus even the 650S, it's aged a little bit. The 650S and especially the 675 LT just look years newer, even though they're not that much newer than the 12C. But I do like the kind of MP4 chassis styling more than the 570S chassis. Just personal preference on that one. At number 3, we have the Lamborghini Aventador LP700, the base Aventador. Hard to call it a base car when it's got a 700 horsepower V12, but in my opinion, this is the cleanest Aventador design. As the LP700 aged, they added in the Aventador SV, followed by the Aventador S, and then finally the SVJ. In my opinion, the SV looks the best, and then the base Aventador is right behind it. The Aventador S just doesn't do it for me, and the SVJ still kind of looks like it has a weird mustache going on with the nostril vents in the front bumper. But I put that third, and then I'd put the Aventador S last in terms of Aventador variants. The S just kind of looks like a catfish to me. They had such a great design to start with. I don't know where it went wrong, but the Aventador is an awesome car. I've gotten to drive one once at Extreme Experience in Las Vegas, and that was a blast. Definitely would recommend. The transmission is as bad as everyone says it is, but you just can't beat the road presence of an Aventador. I mean, it's so wide. You get the Lambo doors, and that exhaust note is just incredible. 10 out of 10 would recommend driving a V12 if you ever get the chance. At number 2, we have the Ferrari 458 Italia, one of the most beautiful cars to come out of Modena in recent years. Total revolution from the 360 and 430 that preceded it, and the last naturally aspirated mid-engine Ferrari. Great car for all the reasons I talked about in the Dark of the Moon review, so I won't go too into detail here, but I would love to drive one of these. It's got a dual clutch, which is what kicks it above the Aventador LP700, and the styling is pretty much perfect in my opinion. Only way for it to get better is if you could get a Speciale, but those go for about twice the cost of a regular 458, so I'll take a 458 at the number 2 slot. But at the number 1 slot, Kind of harkening back to Iron Man 3 on this one, we have a Bugatti Veyron Grand Sport Vitesse. So we had a Bugatti in Iron Man 3, we've got another one here. This one is the one that's featured in the intro on the channel with the kind of bluish teal color and the gray accents. This one is the Vitesse, meaning it's the convertible version. W16 motor, 1200 horsepower, the fastest convertible ever at the time, and one of the all-time greats. The Veyron as a whole chassis deserves its place in the history books, and it takes the #1 slot with ease out of the options in this film. Thank you all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.